Well, this just in, the Supreme Court apparently thinks the First Amendment is really just more of a, a guideline, a suggestion. We're getting into the details of the decision that just came down about an hour ago. Plus, imagine looking at the incredible, amazing athletes on the U.S. Olympic swims team and seeing nothing but the race of the swimmers. That would be kind of racist, wouldn't it? Oh, well, not if you're a Georgetown professor. We'll talk about what happened. And Bill Maher back at it again, telling the truth to liberals over there in Aspen. And they were very uncomfortable, kind of squirmy, hearing the truth about themselves. Oh, and have you seen this guy, a Bachelorette contestant, who is now doing the Dylan Mulvaney day 7 of being a girl thing? And it seems like it's all sort of a put on. Yeah, we've seen it too, and we've got some thoughts about that and a whole lot more. We're brought to you by the Electronic Payments Coalition. My name's Larry O'Connor, but please call me Larry. We are live right now on Rumble, on Facebook, on X, of course, on the Town Hall and Larry O'Connor accounts over there on those platforms. If you're watching us live, go ahead and engage with us. We'll see your comments and we'll try to interact and use them in the show if it's appropriate. And if it's inappropriate, well, we'll read them and laugh, but we probably won't use them on the show because we try to stay family oriented. It's noon, for crying out loud. If you're watching us after the fact, we really appreciate it. Do whatever you can to like, comment, interact with other comments, and share this video. That's all we ask. No money transactions needed here. No, just support what we do so that we can get the word out. And we appreciate all of the comments you've been giving us too. All right, so today the Supreme Court came down with one of the big decisions we've been waiting for. Not the biggest one. The biggest one has to do with immunity and the lawfare persecution of Donald Trump. But this was a big one. This involved the government putting pressure on social media companies to censor and silence individual Americans expressing their opinion, in some cases, their very correct opinion and facts about COVID-19, about the virus, about the vaccine and its effectiveness. And yes, the Biden administration and the government, through its agencies, put pressure on social media companies to clean up that mess and delete people's ideas. Well, this made it all the way to the Supreme Court. And, well, let's just remind everybody before we get into the details of the decision, what the First Amendment actually says. Congress shall make no law. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. All right, that's pretty simple. That's pretty easy to understand, although, boy, if you're from the left, that seems to get confusing as well. And then there's this, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So if you take some of the semicolons out of the way, because this doesn't have to do with the right of the people to peaceably assemble or to petition the government or redress of grievances, if you just take the freedom of speech part of it, the First Amendment clearly states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment. Oh, excuse me. Let me start that again. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, right? If you take the religion part out and it's just the, what does the First Amendment say about the freedom of speech? Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. And obviously the executive branch of government, which is where the White House, the Biden, the presidency, the FBI, Justice Department, all those guys, they only operate if Congress establishes their agencies and funds their agencies. So anything that those agencies do, they do it with Congress's establishment and permission, right? We're clear on that. So if one of those agencies abridges the freedom of speech of an American citizen, well, they've operated outside of the Constitution. That seems pretty simple. But if you're on the Supreme Court, it's not. Because they came down with their ruling today, that really crazy right-wing, out of control Supreme Court that needs to be completely blown up and stacked and fired because they rule on things like abortion that left-wingers don't like. Well, today they love this Supreme Court because it gave them the power to silence you if they don't like your opinion. Sort of. Here's how Jonathan Turley on Fox News laid it out.
Jonathan Turley, the First Amendment, obviously, you call yourself a free speech absolutist. What does this mean? If the states don't have standing, who does?
Well, it's very frustrating for the free speech community because standing is often used to block meritorious claims. This is one of the most fundamental issues that we are facing. I wrote about this issue, this case, in my recent book because you have one of the largest censorship systems in our history, if not the largest. It's been called Orwellian by lower court judges. And what the court is saying is that we won't hear you on this issue because you're not the right litigants. Now, I have to admit, I've always been something of a standing dove. I believe that these standing decisions are too narrow because they do prevent the court from rendering a decision on such important constitutional questions. So this issue will have to wait for another day. But one of the things that many of us have been arguing for years is that the government is engaging in censorship by surrogate. I testified about this in Congress, that they have made a mockery of the limits of the First Amendment by doing indirectly what they're barred from doing directly.
Yeah. So let's spell that out for you. By the way, what is this phrase he just used? The First Amendment community? Aren't all American citizens part of the First Amendment community? Or shouldn't you be? Who isn't in the First Amendment community? Yeah, I'm not going to hang with those guys. They're way too First Amendment-y for me. First Amendment is for all of us. It protects everything that we do. And as you just heard Jonathan Turley say, the Supreme Court, by not ruling today on this, they've basically given permission to the federal government to censor any American citizens they disagree with by proxy. They don't directly do it. No. But they indirectly do it. They compel other people to do it on their behalf. It's like, oh, no, I'm not guilty of murder. I just hired someone else to pull the trigger. No, you'd still be guilty of murder. And that's kind of what happened here. Now, let me first start by giving you some of the good news, because it's not good news, but there's a glimmer of hope in this decision today. And that is what you just heard Jonathan Turley discussing, that they didn't actually make this decision on the merits. All right. They didn't look at the facts involved here and say, yes, of course it's okay for the government to do this. You betcha. It's okay for the government to demand meetings through the FBI with Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whoever else is out there, whatever platform that you're using to express your opinion. It's fine for the FBI to pick up the phone and say, hey, that's a real nice social media platform there. It would be a shame if anything happened to it. So why don't you silence and censor these accounts for saying things we, the government, don't like? Otherwise, it's going to be big trouble for Twitter and Facebook. See, that's what they did here. And the Supreme Court thankfully did not say, you bet your butt it's fine for the FBI to do that. They didn't do that. They came this close to doing it. If they had done that, then they would have made their decision based on the actual merits of this case, and they did not. What they decided here is that the people who were arguing here to the Supreme Court about this issue, that they didn't have standing to make the argument, that they weren't actually directly harmed by the government's actions. Therefore, the case that was in front of them had no merit, and that's what they decided. It's bad, but it could have been a lot worse. All right, so now let's get some analysis on this, because I know you're going to find this shocking. Not only am I not a lawyer, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but you know what? I'm an American citizen. And the fact is, our founding fathers, unlike lawmakers today, who can't, write a law that says that you shouldn't murder somebody without making it a 10,000-page, 8 million word law. The founding fathers actually took great pains to make our founding documents succinct, concise, and comprehensible. It shows their genius. Anytime I get a Martin Scorsese movie right now and it's 6 hours long, I think, yeah, he's losing something. Because it takes a real genius to be able to say something powerful and true and comprehensible and understandable in as little time as possible. The greatest writers are the ones who were able to eliminate all the words that are not necessary. Our founding fathers were geniuses because they made the Constitution, now 250 years old almost, completely understandable to anyone. You don't have to have a law degree to understand it. You don't have to be a constitutional expert to understand it. In fact, you've got to have a law degree to screw it up, which is what we often see. So let's turn to some people who have analyzed this. Now, Dr. J. Bhattacharya, I'm terrible at his name, and I'm sorry, Dr. J. Dr. J, I wonder if he plays basketball. Dr. J. Bhattacharya is not a legal expert. He's, in fact, a medical doctor and an expert on viruses. See, he has a vested interest in this case and knows a lot about it because he's one of the people who was silenced by this. All right. And he says losing on the standing argument means that the Supreme Court thinks the government, as long as it doesn't specifically censor a person, can censor ideas without violating the First Amendment. You get that? As long as they're not censoring you, an individual, we're just censoring an idea. Well, that's okay, because an idea is not protected by the First Amendment. The Constitution isn't there to protect ideas. The Constitution's there to protect citizens. And boy, you've got to twist yourself into a pretzel to really get there. But that's kind of what they did. Now, let's expand further on Dr. J. Bhattacharya here, because again, he does have standing. He was harmed by Twitter. He was expressing, as a Stanford medical professor, somebody with exquisite, impeccable credentials, he was expressing an alternative opinion about COVID and the vaccines and such than what the government wanted you to hear. And the White House sent its army of goons from the FBI to tell Twitter to delete what he was saying and to stop him because it ran contrary to the government's line on COVID. Now, if that doesn't terrify you, there's something wrong with you. I guess you're not part of the First Amendment community. That's what happened to this man. And again, the Supreme Court basically said, yeah, they didn't technically violate the Constitution. Now, what can be done about it next, we'll get to, okay? But here's what Dr. J has to say. I'll read. Supreme Court just ruled in the Murthy versus Missouri case that the Biden administration can coerce social media companies to censor and shadow ban people and posts it doesn't like. And here's where we get to the remedy. Congress will now need to act to enforce the Constitution since the Supreme Court won't. And I think that's an overall lesson for a lot of us. You know, a lot of us, sadly, especially we conservatives or we brand newly discovered conservatives, there's a lot of you out there who never thought you were a conservative, but you've seen what's happened in this country over the last 8 to 10 years. And you now are championing ideas that conservatives have been sort of talking about for decades now, right? You may not think of yourself as a conservative, but guess what? If you're not on the left, you're one of us. Welcome to the party, pal. And a lot of us conservatives, we have fallen into the trap that the left created. You see, some of the worst ideas in our country have not been enacted by Congress over the last 50 years. They've been sort of insinuated into our government and into our society by court rulings. The left could never really get the popular vote or the type of electoral mass that they needed, critical mass they needed to have an overwhelming majority in legislatures at the state level or at the federal level to pass the kind of laws they wanted to fundamentally change our country. So because they couldn't do that, because the people weren't on their side, because their ideas were so bad, what they did instead was they used lawfare. What they did was they had a president, when they had Obama or Clinton in the White House, to appoint certain types of federal judges that then would see cases that would either reach judicial fiat through the federal court system and the Supreme Court when they had a majority there, or through forcing settlements with companies like the cigarette companies. The cigarette companies, they wanted to outlaw cigarettes. They've always wanted to outlaw cigarettes, but they can't because we have these stupid freedoms. So what did they do? They sued the cigarette companies, and they wasted the cigarette companies billions of dollars in legal fees in the court system until they finally relented and they said, fine, let's just reach a settlement. We're done with this. And so now there's these huge restrictions on cigarettes. There's a lot of things the cigarette companies can, and you may be in favor of that. That's not the point. It's how they got there that's the point. Now there's all these restrictions on cigarettes, on where you can smoke and how you can smoke and how cigarette companies can advertise for smoking and what kind of labels they have to have. And none of it was passed through law. It was all done through the court system, through settlements, where the cigarette companies agreed to do this. Just stay off our backs and stop suing us. They're trying to do that with gun manufacturers right now. They can't abridge the Second Amendment. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to sue gun manufacturers into oblivion until they reach settlements where they basically, acquiesce and do whatever the left wants. This is what the left has been doing. And sadly, we conservatives, we slipped into this pattern where we were relying on judges and Supreme Court justices and the judicial branch to basically give us the results that we wanted. And so Dr. J points out something that's really clear and really important here. Congress is now going to have to act to enforce the Constitution, and they can. They didn't. They should explain why they didn't. They may have thought, oh, well, we don't need to because the Constitution is clear here. Well, it's not. And the Supreme Court didn't do the heavy lifting for Republicans in Congress, so now it's time for them to do it. Dr. J continues. This now, and this is key for all of us this election year, this now also becomes a key issue in the upcoming election, which is good. We shouldn't have to sit and wait for judges to make these decisions for us. Every single person running for office should say, do you or do you not think that the FBI, acting on behalf of the White House, should be able to force social media companies to delete content that they don't like? Answer the question. In fact, this should be a debate question tomorrow. This now becomes a key issue in the upcoming election. Where do the presidential candidates stand on social media censorship? We know where Biden stands, since his lawyers argue that he has near monarchical power over social media speech. The court ruled that the plaintiffs, Missouri and Louisiana, as well as me, that would be Dr. J, and other blacklisted individuals, lacked standing to sue. This means that the administration can censor ideas, and no person will have standing to enforce the First Amendment. Free speech in America, for the moment, is dead. Really good, keen observations from somebody who was directly affected by all of this. Okay, Sean Davis, he's one of the founders of The Federalist. He had plenty to say about this too. Sean Davis says, the Supreme Court also appears to have created a brand new standard that appears nowhere in the First Amendment. Coercion. Yeah. See, get this. He's commenting on Jeff Clark's post here. The Supreme Court wrongly booted the most significant First Amendment case in U.S. history on standing of grounds today. And again, the whole idea is that the government never coerced speech or coerced these companies to silence free speech. But that's not what the Constitution says. It says nothing about coercion. The actual text in the Constitution sets the bar far lower. It's abridgment, not coercion, just abridgment. If you abridge free speech, if speech is abridged, the government has violated the Constitution, period. It's a sad day for the country and our rights as citizens to speak out against and hold our government accountable. And Sean Davis had one other point to make here. And he highlights this part of the prevailing decision here. And I'll read it and then we'll get to his analysis. The plaintiffs cannot manufacture standing merely by inflicting harm on themselves based on their fears of hypothetical future harm that is not certainly impending. All right, what does that mean? Let's say you get a notification from Twitter that your account is suspended unless you delete a tweet that you've put up there, or you will be punished. Or let's say you have a YouTube account, right? And you've been doing videos about potential harms of the vaccine, and YouTube notifies you and they say you delete that video or your account will be suspended. And well, you count on the income that you get from YouTube, right? You pay your bills from YouTube because of the money that you make off of YouTube. And now you've got YouTube saying, you've got to delete this video. Otherwise, your account is suspended. No more income, no more livelihood for you. You won't be able to pay your rent. You won't be able to take care of your children. You won't be able to feed yourself unless you delete this video. And YouTube is only telling you this because the government put pressure on YouTube to do that. So, of course, you delete the video. That's called self-censorship. That's what the Supreme Court is saying. Manufacturers are merely by inflicting harm on themselves based on their fears of hypothetical future harm. You see that? Hey, the government didn't technically delete that. You just deleted it so you could keep your job. But, you know, you weren't harmed. You harmed yourself. You deleted it yourself. Here's Sean Davis's take. One of the most insidious intended effects of government censorship is self-censorship. By punishing others for what they say and believe, tyrannical governments terrorize their citizens' own thoughts by creating every incentive for them to just be quiet. But in its abominable opinion, effectively greenlighting government censorship, the Supreme Court explicitly mocked the mere concept of self-censorship and said it is little more than a citizen inflicting harm on himself for no reason. Citizens cannot manufacture standing merely by inflicting harm on themselves based on their fears of hypothetical future harm that is not certainly impending, the anti-free speech majority wrote in this opinion. This is not constitutional exegesis. It's the language of tyrants. He's correct. Which brings us back to what's the next steps? What can we do? Because yes, there is a ray of hope here. Because this decision was based on standing, then there could be another fight in the courts. That's what Attorney General of Missouri, Andrew Bailey, said. He's the one who brought this case in the first place. He says, my office filed suit against dozens of officials in the federal government to stop the biggest violation of the First Amendment in our nation's history. And by the way, it should be pointed out that every court leading up to the Supreme Court agreed with Attorney General Bailey and with the First Amendment. It won at every step along the way until it got to the Supreme Court. The record is clear. The deep state pressured and coerced social media companies to take down truthful speech simply because it was conservative. Today's ruling does not dispute that. My rallying, and it's true, by the way, that's another ray of hope. On the facts of the case that the federal government did this, the Supreme Court said, yeah, they did this. The only question is, are they allowed to? So there's no more denials from Karine Jean-Pierre, Jen Psaki, or Joe Biden. Oh, hey, we didn't do that. We were just letting them know. No. We know they did it. My rallying cry to disappointed Americans is this: Missouri is not done. We are going back to the district court to obtain more discovery in order to root out Joe Biden's vast censorship enterprise once and for all. Well, that's good, and I'm glad, and we want fighters on our side. But ultimately, this is about you. It's always about you. It's about us. It's about we, the people. First three words of that Constitution right before we get to the First Amendment. It's about us. It's about holding our elected officials accountable. No more hiding behind people in black robes. No more hoping that judges, that we find the right ones and it'll make its pathway up. No more counting on presidents who will appoint the next Supreme Court justice or waiting for the next one to retire or die so we can get another Supreme Court justice. No, this was 6-3, guys. No. This is about holding our elected officials accountable and making sure that anyone who wants your precious vote this November is on the side of freedom of speech and against the government compelling your speech to be abridged and completely shut down. Because that's what happened here. And if we don't take a stand now, we're not going to have freedom of speech anymore. Kiss this show goodbye and anything else you like on the internet that may not exactly agree with Joe Biden or whatever other tyrant happens to sit in the Oval Office. Millions of Americans earn and use credit card rewards. Now, corporate megastores want to take those rewards away. These are rewards that we use on groceries and school supplies. This is cashback. You got one of those cashback cards? I like those cashback cards. This is cashback that you can use to save on gas or grow your small business and reinvestment back into your enterprise. Travel miles that we use to make memories. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would eliminate those credit card rewards. No more travel miles, no more cashback. When lawmakers help corporate megastores line their pockets, American families pay for it. So tell your senator to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. Go to handsoffmyrewards.com to take action today. That's handsoffmyrewards.com. Let's check in on CNN again. Now, they're getting ready for the debate tomorrow. And by doing their debate prep, what they're doing is they're practicing lying about Donald Trump and calling him, outrageous things like racist and violent rhetoric and all that stuff. Now, here's the latest one. They've got one guy on that network, one guy, Scott Jennings, out of Kentucky. He's the only guy there who is allowed to be on the air and actually challenge their messaging about Donald Trump, their lies about Donald Trump. And by the way, if you look at social media, whenever he's on the air, you'll see the left-wing lunatics screaming, "Why do you have this man on? Well, this is terrible television. He's the worst. I'm going to turn the channel as long as so." So in other words, CNN's audience, they don't even want this one voice on there. The one guy who challenges the anti-Trump, anti-Republican, anti-conservative, anti-American rhetoric that you see in their programming every single day. So here's the latest from CNN, and here's Scott Jennings doing his best.
And what the Biden campaign is going to do, as they should, they're going to use those comments as yet another demonstration of just how anti-immigrant, anti-Latino, anti-American Donald Trump is, as he's trying to convince people outside of his MAGA coalition that he actually wants them to support him. He's never going to be able to do that with these horrific racist comments that he's making. And he seems to enjoy what he's saying. And yes, it riles up his MAGA base because they are as xenophobic as he is, but it does nothing to try to add support from the voters, the independents, the suburban women, the other coalitions that he needs in order to win. So as a Democrat, by all means, keep saying what you're saying. It's exactly who he is at his core. As a Latina and as an immigrant, it makes me want to throw up, frankly, to tell you.
Well, I think that it's fair for us now to take a pause and see exactly what comments they're talking about, right? These xenophobic, racist things that make her a Latina throw up. Do you notice that she speaks perfect, non-accented English the entire time? And then the second she says and identifies herself as Latina, it's not Latina, it's Latina. God, that's just so insidiously boring. Okay, so what are they talking about? What did Trump say that is so racist, so outrageous, that reflects the racism from the MAGA crowd? That's you she's talking about. Oh, yeah. No, this isn't about Trump. It's always about you. Remember that. All right, here's what he said. This was at the Faith and Freedom Coalition this weekend, right? In Washington, D.C. here.
Tough. It is so tough. Dana White. Did anyone ever hear of Dana White? He's a legend, right? UFC, ultimate fighter, ultimate fighting. And he's a fantastic man. I said, Dana, I have an idea. Why don't you set up a migrant league of fighters and have your regular league of fighters? And then you have the champion of your league. These are the greatest fighters in the world. Fight the champion of the migrants. I think the migrant guy might win. That's how tough they are. He didn't like that idea too much, but actually it's not the worst idea I've ever had.
It's just Trump. It's just Trump going off teleprompter and being funny because he is funny. And now their hair is on fire. He wants to set up cage matches of the migrants and have them fight each other. And this is going to be a government mandate. And he's going to get his MAGA crowd in the Congress and Senate to sign it right after they sign laws that make every woman dress like Handmaid's Tale. This is who they are. And we've got to stop them now because democracy is in danger. I mean, seriously, that's a CNN segment, what I just did for you. That's what they do. All right. So those are the comments they're so upset about. That's what makes this Latina want to vomit. All right. So here comes Scott Jennings with his reply.
Tell you the truth, Scott.
2/3 of the American people support Donald Trump's policy prescriptions for immigration right now, including a majority of Hispanics
But
in
what
the
about
United
his
States.
comments?
Let me just tell
do you
a few
see them
things.
as racist and xenophobic comments?
There's CNN being CNN. I mean, that is a beautiful, it's finally his turn to talk after all of that vile that you just heard. Makes me want to vomit, and they're racist and they're xenophobic and this. And so he starts by saying, okay, so there's a little reality check here. The polls show that 2/3 of the American people actually want Donald Trump to handle immigration. Oh, but what about the racism? We called you racist and now you're compelled to reply. So, of course, he gets interrupted. This is good debate prep, right? They're practicing. Listen, Biden is hidden away for 2 weeks, getting all of his injections and getting his chip implanted in his brain so they can communicate with him, right? And Trump's out there. What the Babylon Bee said, Trump is screaming at dementia patients in an old age home so he can get his debate prep in and his practice. CNN's got to practice too. These things don't just happen on their own. You got to get your reps in. So here's a good example. Interrupt the person who's talking and start screaming racism at them. All right, let's go back a little.
2/3 of the American people support Donald Trump's policy prescriptions for immigration right now, including a majority of Hispanics
But
in
what
the
about
United
his
States.
comments?
Let me
I
just
mean,
tell
do
you
you
a few
see them
things.
as racist and xenophobic comments? I mean, he's painting migrants as,
No.
being violent. They have violent tendencies, right? And of course,
Oh,
dehumanizing
oh,
them
is he? Oh, is he? Well,
to being entertainment for the rest of us.
is he painting them as being violent? I mean, would Lake and Riley think they were violent? Would Rachel Marin think they were violent? Would Jocelyn Nungare in Texas think they were violent? How about the girl that was raped in broad daylight in New York City? How about the girl that was kidnapped in Missouri? Yeah, there are violent people in the country. And yeah, Donald Trump uses colorful language, but the bottom line is immigration is killing Joe Biden's campaign right now. This is why he has a low approval rating. This is why Donald Trump is honing in on this. And people are responding to it, and people are fed up with it. And if you want to call 2/3 of the country racist or xenophobic because they're in a mood right now that they want this fixed, yes, agree. By all means, go on. It's not going to work.
Yeah, thank you to Newsbusters for that. And one other point I want to make here before we pivot a bit and show sort of a larger expanded wheelhouse right now of what CNN is in the midst of. But, the obvious retort here is, just because of those violent murders and rapes at the hands of illegal immigrants coming into this country, that doesn't mean they're all violent. And of course that's true. And nobody said, did you hear Donald Trump in that video that we played say that all of them, every single one of them? No, he just said maybe you should have a migrant ultimate fighter league and then have them fight each other. And then the winner of that fights the winner of that. Obviously, he's not saying, yes, that's right, every single one of them. Of course he wasn't saying that. And to take what he said at that speech as some sort of, that's like he put out a policy paper and a proposal that he wants to, it's stupid. It's stupid, right? But the obvious reply that they're going to say is, well, they're not all violent. They're not all violent. And nobody's saying that they're all violent. But see, here's what's interesting. Here's what's very, very interesting. Let me take it back to the beginning so you can hear what this Democrat says here. And apparently, if you point out the murders and rapes at the hands of illegal immigrants, you are being racist by suggesting that every single illegal immigrant is a murderer and a rapist, right? That's what they immediately expect. The second you point out that these crimes are happening and they're being perpetrated by illegal immigrants, you're accused of being racist by painting with a broad brush, right? And they have to leap in front of you and say, but they're not all doing that. Not all of them are like that, right? But look at what she says about people who support Donald Trump.
And what the Biden campaign is going to do, as they should, they're going to use those comments as yet another demonstration of just how anti-immigrant, anti-Latino, anti-American Donald Trump is, as he's trying to convince people outside of his MAGA coalition that he actually wants them to support him. He's never going to be able to do that with these horrific racist comments that he's making. And he seems to enjoy what he's saying. And yes, it riles up his MAGA base because they are as xenophobic as he is.
See what she did? You see what she did? So again, let me just tell you the rules here. He just said that Trump's MAGA base is as xenophobic as he is. Okay, first of all, he's not xenophobic. But she just said the MAGA base is as xenophobic. In other words, every single one of you who consider yourself MAGA or a Trump supporter or what have you, she literally just said that all of you are racist. And yet when you point out the actual rapes and murders perpetrated by illegal immigrants, they immediately jump in and say, well, that's racist because you're suggesting that all of them are, when you literally didn't say all of them are. But she literally said all of you are racist. And they get away with it. And the second you point out the actual crimes, they accuse you of false racism. Because this is what happens on CNN. This is what they do. And it's a great reflection of what the media does across the board, because the CNN is kind of the gold standard of how the media operates. They still pretend that they're unbiased. They still pretend that they're just delivering news. And let's turn to another one of those news programs, because they had one of the front runners on many people's scorecards to be Donald Trump's running mate, Vivek Ramaswamy. Even though I think Donald Trump has already said that he's not going to choose Vivek. I think that he's made that clear, but maybe that was just sort of a bluff to keep people guessing. Well, watch how they treated Vivek the other day on CNN.
You have some experience, recent experience on the debate stage, and you were pretty aggressive. And some people liked it, but other people didn't. For instance, the other candidates who were on that stage with you, Nikki Haley said, "You're just scum." Chris Christie called you the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So what lessons did you learn about aggressive tactics in debating?
Well, look, one of the things I would say is just be yourself and be.
But I'm sorry, I can't let him get away with that. The question, boy. You were on the debate stage, and let's face it, you were a big when you were debating those people, and everybody said it. Let me quote these other people who also said you were a giant. So, what's it like to be such a when you're debating? What is that premise? The fact that Vivek just sort of lets it fall off his shoulder and just goes on to his answer is actually a great sign for his temperament. All right, go ahead, Vivek.
Well, look, one of the things I would say is just be yourself and be true to Americans. I think the people of this country are able to snuff through pre-prepared, pre-canned talking points. One of the things I love about President Trump is he's not a guy who just sticks to a script. He's a guy who actually speaks his heart and mind. But one piece of advice I would give him, and I've gotten to know President Trump, especially after I've left the presidential race, is he is actually somebody who deeply cares about national unity. And that does not come across in the media's normal reporting of him. So,
did you see the reaction of the journo head here, the talking head, the person whose job it is to, have a good haircut and read a teleprompter? Watch when Vivek Ramaswamy says that he actually cares about national unity. Watch the CNN dude. Keep your eye on him. All right, here he's going to say it right now.
Somebody who deeply cares about national unity. And that does not come across in the media.
You see that? What? That's a lie. We know better because we've created this myth about him. Again, this is who CNN is. This is all debate prep, just so you're ready for CNN's performance tomorrow night.
He has normal reporting of him. So one of my pieces of advice to him, and I think that he will be successful in getting this across, if not at the debate for the rest of the campaign, is how much he does care about reuniting one nation in this country. Biden pledged to unite the country. He has failed miserably. And I think this debate tonight is a chance to focus on that vision for the future rather than relitigate.
Have you ever looked at Donald Trump's social media account, like on major national holidays where he says Happy Easter to all, even the scum, and filth of the earth, things like that? That's a message of unity?
By the way, real fast, that is literally a message of unity. This is what I love. This is how they're so stupid. First of all, they don't get the joke. Okay. But secondly, that is literally a message of unity. Happy Easter to everyone, even the people who I think are jerks. See, unity is not pretending that you like people and that there aren't offensive people out there who hate you. That's just lying. That's just pretending. That's being a phony. Unity is, I know I disagree with you. I know that you're obnoxious. I know you think I'm obnoxious. I know you hate me. But happy Easter anyway. And so the fact that they're so oblivious to the reality of that and they don't get the joke is, well, it tells you everything.
Well, look, obviously, because the media is actually picking a lot of the things that he said in a position of having been a fighter. Look, that first term had to be about fighting fire with fire because that's the position.
No. I'm talking about like 3 weeks ago. I'm talking about 3 weeks ago. Do you think his social media account is unifying?
Look, I don't think social media is set up to be unifying, period. And that's not a left-wing or a right-wing point. That's a 280 characters point. But I'm revealing a point that I think is counterintuitive to a lot of people, but is important.
It's counterintuitive because they don't
revitalizing the greatness of America
see
and
a message of unity.
Yeah, but and good job for Vivek in going after this and doing a really good job on it. I wouldn't have had that patience or understanding. But this reveals CNN for who they are and what they do. And here's the most important part, especially, again, this is your debate prep segment, so you can see what CNN's doing to get ready for tomorrow night. It's already baked in the cake that everybody assumes two things. number one, that Donald Trump is a racist, xenophobic, obnoxious person who doesn't care about unifying the country, and who is horrible to the people who don't support him and don't like him, which, by the way, is not true. But that's the narrative that's been written about him. And yes, sometimes Trump doesn't help his own cause in sort of amplifying the stereotypes about him. But it doesn't matter, because those objective moderators for CNN, they've got it ingrained in their conscience, and they're going to approach tomorrow night the same way. The other thing that everybody knows to be true is that Joe Biden is one of the nicest, kindest, gentlest, most harmonious figures in American politics over the last 5+ decades. That everybody likes Joe, and that he's such a kindly old man. He's like good old Uncle Joe, who's there with a chuckle and a pat on the back, even if it's somebody that he disagrees with. And they're not going to show him screaming about MAGA fascists who are trying to destroy our country. He's not going to show him yelling at reporters who dare to ask him a question and calling them every name in the book. We see that Joe Biden. We know the truth about Joe Biden. We know that Joe Biden has been one of the most mean-spirited, divisive political figures in the last half a century in America. And if you don't believe me, ask the little kids who didn't get to get bused to a white school because he threw down with the racists back in the 70s. I'm just quoting Kamala Harris right now. You can ask the family of Robert Bork, who Joe Biden maligned, disparaged, and destroyed for his own political futures. You can ask all of the people he plagiarized when he was running for office back in the late 80s. Oh, I forgot one guy. You can ask the guy who drove the truck that hit his late wife's car back in the 70s, who Joe Biden lied about and said was a drunk driver. You can ask Robert Bork and his wife and his family, as he was dragged through the slime by Joe Biden for his own political purposes. Hey, why not ask Paul Ryan? I doubt he'll answer, honestly. But ask Paul Ryan about all the lies and the insults that he threw during the vice presidential debate back in 2012. And for that matter, you can ask Mitt Romney, because Joe Biden lied about him and said that he was a racist and he was going to put black people in chains if he were elected. And you can ask each and every one of us who has seen Joe Biden over the years, and certainly over the last 3.5 years, as the mean-spirited, angry, obnoxious jerk that he always has been. But see, CNN, they don't see that. They've got their narrative, and nothing's going to get in the way of it. So now you're prepped. You're prepped for the debate tomorrow. Can't wait, really. So imagine seeing this picture on social media posted by the USA Swimming Organization after an exciting, exhilarating Olympic trials event that was done in the football stadium in Indianapolis. It was an amazing scene if you're into competitive swimming. And here is the USA team. It says, ladies and gentlemen, your 2024 USA Olympic team. And there they are. Just an incredible group of athletes who have just competed, and they've just reached the pinnacle, or at least the next step in their goals, which is to make the Olympic team, to go to Paris to represent our nation and hopefully get on the medal stand. I mean, we usually dominate in swimming, and this is just such a great story, and it was fantastic. Imagine looking at that photo on social media and seeing nothing but the skin color of the people in that picture. Now, that would be ridiculous. In fact, that would be racist, wouldn't it be? But that's exactly what this Georgetown professor did, named Janelle George. She decided to take to X and say, when people say that Jim Crow was so long ago, it's important to remember the lasting effects of segregated spaces, like segregated swimming pools, and the continued impact across generations. This visual reflects that legacy. So this sad, pathetic racist with a degree, an advanced degree, and a good salary from a major American university, this sad, pathetic person looks at that picture of harmony and unity and triumph and accomplishment and patriotism and sees only the skin color of the people in that picture. Can you imagine what a sad, pathetic life this person must have? So how do you deal with this? How do you respond to that kind of thing? Well, we've got a great example of it that's been displayed by our friends at our sister site at Town Hall, Twitchy. If you don't go to Twitchy on a regular basis, you're missing out because it's some of the best content. And it aggregates, of course, and comments on and celebrates some of the highest and lowest moments of social media. And as you can see from the very descriptive headline, "Oh, shut up." Georgetown professor says photo of U.S. Olympic swim team is evidence of Jim Crow. And some of the highlights there of the people who have responded really give us a good lesson on how we deal with people like this. Let's start with this one, which is just an observation that I've already laid out for you. Imagine looking at a photo of a group of athletes that trained insanely hard and qualified for the Olympics and thinking, how can I use this to complain about racism? That's exactly what she did. And that's how sad she is. Somebody else replied with, I think, honestly, the perfect response, which is, on that note, congratulations to Simone and Shane. Yeah, the two Black athletes who were in that picture, who worked their asses off to achieve this incredible accomplishment on behalf of our country, who will proudly represent us in Paris. And I'm proud that they will be representing us. And this Georgetown law professor who cares so much about Black people neglected to even acknowledge them. All she could see was racism. It's despicable and insulting to these people who have had a great achievement. So good for this tiny Princess D for making that point. But then there's also, how else do you respond? Well, you can respond by counterfactuals, by bringing up other evidence that sort of negate what this professor is trying to say about how racist America is. And the first obvious example would be this. Show them the 2024 U.S. Olympic basketball team, a group of incredible athletes who have also worked hard and trained hard and reached this great accomplishment. And I don't know about you, when I look at this picture, I see great basketball players, pro basketball players. I see a team that nobody on the planet wants to play on the hardwood. And it doesn't even occur to me to look at it and think, wow, where are all the white people? You know why I look at this picture and I don't say, geez, they're all Black? Because I'm not racist. Or I don't have an advanced degree and a professorship at a major American college university. I just see a great basketball team that's going to represent us and probably win the gold going away. While we're at it, don't even have to look at basketball. What about the track and field team? As Jason says, they look great. They run fast. They'll represent the country well. Go USA. And the majority of the runners and sprinters and jumpers on the track and field team for the United States Olympic team are Black. And you may be saying to yourself as I make this point, so what? And my answer to it is, you're right. We shouldn't care. Unless you're a professor at Georgetown University, and then all you can see. You see, because the only objectionable thing when it comes to this stuff is if everyone in the picture or the predominant number of people in the picture are white. But if everybody's Black, well, that's fine. That's not an indication of anything, right? I mean, that's the message that they're sending to us. So we'll go back to Professor George's. I do love that her X name here is JG4 Justice. And we'll look at some of the other good replies, because the next step, the next response that we can do is to just make fun of her and to mock her for the racist idiot that she is. And this is one of my favorites, Hilaria Bryden, Esquire. It says, Black people should be allowed to swim. I mean, after all, it is 2024. What is wrong with our country that we still don't allow Black people to swim? I mean, they might drown if they don't get some basic lessons after all. Yes, the mocking really needs to go on. But also present some other ideas that might sort of fly in the face of this incredibly racist observation. You see, we're told that this is all about Jim Crow and the lasting legacy of segregated swimming pools, where Ramrod on Twitter points out a very important challenge to that. If that were true, why aren't any African nations swimming powerhouses? Your whiny, constant victims are disgusting. I mean, that is a fair enough point. It's not like any predominantly black country dominates in swimming competitions, and they didn't have any segregated swimming pools. I'm pretty sure that in a predominantly African country, every single swimming pool was dominated by young black kids learning how to swim. The Jamaicans always produce a great sprinter, right? That is a predominantly black country. Why don't they also produce dominating track athletes, or excuse me, swimmers? If it's just about racism, if it's just about Jim Crow, if it's just about segregation. And there's another way to make this argument, by the way. As Greg, Harmful Opinion, points out, Canada, our northern neighbor, did not have slavery, did not have segregation, did not have Jim Crow. How many black swimmers do they have on their Olympic team? They have a lot of black Canadians. And then he asked the rhetorical question, you do know that every single statistical disparity isn't a result of racism, right? Whereupon her response would be, no, actually, I don't know that. As far as I'm concerned, everything that I look at has to do with Jim Crow, racism, and most importantly, that white people are evil. Now give us our reparations. Further along the mockery lane, though, I do like this graphic. When memes say it all, racism is pretty much dead, if not at least, in the final throes. But Democrats are trying desperately to revive it. You see, these are all ways that we can respond with humor, with insults, with disparaging remarks, with facts that point out the racism of the actual person making this statement rather than the racism they perceive. But I still like this one. It's short, it's succinct, it's powerful, and it puts us back where we're supposed to be. This is from the Republican National Hispanic Assembly. Republican Hispanics? Yeah, that's right. They posted the picture and said it all. It's not about race. It's about America. Let's go. And if you're my generation and you're starting to shop colleges for your kids who are about to graduate, I just made life a lot easier for you. Or to be more specific, Professor Janelle George just made things a lot easier for you. One more college you can take off your list of consideration, Georgetown University. It's a beautiful campus. It's right there. It's right across the Potomac from the town hall offices where we originate this show. We can look out our windows and see Georgetown every day. It's beautiful. Don't send your kids there. God, please don't send your kids to Georgetown. Now, you'll remember Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney was a struggling chorus boy on Broadway. I think he did the national tour of Book of Mormon, but pretty much, bit parts chorus. And when the pandemic hit, Dylan Mulvaney, because theaters were shut down, needed a way to generate income. And coincidentally, that need to generate income from chorus boy Dylan Mulvaney also coincided with the moment he realized that he was really a woman trapped in a man's body. And so during COVID, he took to TikTok and created a social media empire that is translated into millions of dollars of revenue. Coincidentally. But it was really just a daily documentation of his realization that he was really a woman, or actually, to be specific, which is also one of the creepiest things about Dylan Mulvaney, he was a girl, not a woman, a girl. So here was a 28, 29, 30-year-old man pretending not to be a woman, an adult woman, no, pretending to be like a 12-year-old girl. If you look at the videos, which, you don't have to, take my word for it, he very specifically portrayed this very sort of adolescent young girl, not an actual adult woman. It was part of the creep about it, but it was also part of the insult about the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing. It was bad. It was gross. I now present to you for your approval, a man named Josh Sider. You may recognize him. He was a contestant on The Bachelorette. Yeah, he put himself into reality television to gain fame and fortune under the guise that he wanted to date and maybe even eventually marry the contestant on Bachelorette, the woman who was doing the choosing. And this person had a little bit of a following, built a social media platform, and like most reality TV stars, they come and go, and he came and he was on his way out the door. But then recently, he has sort of decided to do the Dylan Mulvaney thing. Yes, as you can see from this still, he's wearing lipstick, he's wearing a feminine top, and well, Josh has now decided to be a transgender individual and document it daily on TikTok and social media. Here, take a look.
Hey everyone. So I'm seeing a lot of comments out there talking about trans women like we are one big monolith, one homogenous group of people, and we can't deviate. I want to let you know trans women are different and diverse, just like with any other group. Some of us have more feminine features. Some of us have more masculine features. Some of us have facial hair. Some of us don't. That's okay. Everyone's journey is unique and different and varied. So I just want to let you know that wherever you stand in your journey as a trans woman, you are valid, you are beautiful, and your journey is yours. So own it. Bye, guys.
Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. I saw this first video several days ago. I think he's on day 15, 18 or something of being a girl. I saw the first one and I actually took it seriously. I actually thought, oh my God, because I'm programmed now to assume that all of this is for real. And now here we go with this mentally warped individual going through this process and giving a new face to the trans community or whatever they are calling themselves these days. And I took it seriously, and I posted on it on X. I think I said, this is so insulting to women, because I find it so insulting that you just, put on a dress, put on some lipstick and talk a certain way, because every woman, as you know, talks this way. And of course, I don't know an actual genuine real woman in my life at all in any capacity that talks that way, but it's this minstrel show. It's like blackface, where you put on a couple of ornaments or accessories, and then you pretend to be something you're not, but you're not really pretending to be that thing. You're actually pretending to be the stereotype of that thing. So I was like, this is terrible. I can't believe this. It's insulting to women. This guy shouldn't be celebrated. Then I saw another video that he put out. And, well, I'll let you watch.
Hey, everyone. Go Cubbies. Got to represent. I just wanted to hop on and answer one of the most frequently asked questions that I get. Do I plan on having surgery? I do. I plan on having bottom surgery, and I plan on doing it in about 12 months. As you guys know, the guidelines recommend about 12 months after starting HRT is the ideal time to have surgery if you're going to do it. So I plan on having bottom surgery in June of 2025. I will keep you guys updated as this process continues. But right now, that is the plan. And just wanted to let you guys know.
All right. So then I saw that one and I was like, okay, if this has really only been going on for a few weeks and now all of a sudden he has a plan for his bottom surgery. And by the way, are there like little, he's wearing like a training bra, and he's like stuffed some things in the training bra because he's not on hormones. He's clearly not on hormones. Look at the hairy chest. And look at the 5 o'clock shadow and everything. So he is not growing breasts. I think that he's stuffing or something. Either that or dude is like benching 600 or something. Or he used to. And now he's got a bit of a droop going on. So I saw that one and I was like, all right, this can't be. There's no way that he's already like on the path for bottom surgery. There's no way he's on hormones. But everything that he just said in that video, he could have just looked up. He could have looked it up on the internet, all these, because he makes it sound like, as you know, there's a 6 months waiting period. And as soon as you're on HGT, then you got to do this and you got to do that. And it's like, you can read all of that. online and sort of, turn it into your shtick. And now I start realizing, okay, this is a shtick. He's trolling. In fact, he is using this absurdity to point out the absurdity of the trans craze. So in a way, this is actually brilliant. So then I saw yesterday's video.
Hey everyone, sorry I look like a hot mess today. I just wanted to vent a little bit. I feel like dates can be so cheap. The last couple of dates that I've gone on, I've expected the guy to pay because I feel like the man should pay for the first date, and they just don't want to. And so I just had a date earlier this afternoon, and I sat there when the bill came, and finally I just said, the guy should pay first, and kind of pushed it towards him, and he said, well, in that case, you should pay. And I just thought, that is so rude. And I just don't understand what the issue is. I feel like everyone's trying to get something for free these days. I don't understand. I just want to go on a date and have the man be a gentleman and treat me right, treat me like a woman. So if any of you are having the same experience, let me know.
All right, so this is when I knew that this whole thing is a put on. It's brilliant, by the way. Transphobia led to me having to pay for the transphobia. Imagine this guy sitting across from you in a date, which of course it never happened, but he paints the picture. Also, by the way, I do love how he starts off every one with sort of this stereotype sort of mockery of how women act, right? Look at this first one.
Everyone, sorry I look like a hot mess today.
So I am sorry I look like a hot mess. He doesn't even try to feminize anything else. He doesn't try to feminize the eyebrows or the beard. He's always, if you noticed, he's always got stubble. In every single one, he's got stubble. His haircut is as masculine as you can get. And every outfit he has highlights all the tats on his body. All right. So when I saw this one, I knew that this is a joke. This whole thing is actually brilliant satire. And as the great Rush Limbaugh used to say, you point out the absurdity of the thing by being absurd, right? This is what actually highlights how absurd this entire cultural phenomenon is. And the best thing is, this is what needs to happen. Trans people need to get outraged about this. They need to get angry and upset, because the only response is, why? He's just following what's inside of him. He needs to get arrested, going into a women's locker room or something. All right. So I'm kidding. I don't want him to go into a women's locker room. So this brings us to last night's Alex Stein show. Alex Stein does a late night comedy show on YouTube and The Blaze. He's funny, but he's not everybody's cup of tea. But I do find Alex Stein funny. And he had this dude on with the pearls. So he had this dude on, and I'm not going to interrupt this now. I'll let it go for 2 minutes, because this may be one of the funniest exchanges over this whole thing, as Alex Stein tries to get to the bottom of this whole phenomenon.
Listen, let's just cut the kayfabe. Do you know who I am? I'm Primetime 99 Pimp on a Blimp. I wear the tuck-friendly bathing suit. I've done it all. I've done this gimmick a million times over. I know what it's like to put on the dress, to try to be funny. And for me, I'm just being honest with you, Josh, it's caused me a lot of backlash. As a matter of fact, you get a lot of hate for doing it, not necessarily from the left-leaning people that you're making fun of, but you'll never be accepted by the right side either, because they're always going to consider you a freak. I'm just telling you this as a friend. I know this is a bit. I know it's a gimmick, and I know you're trolling, and I love it because I do the same thing. But how long do you think you can do this for, dude? I mean, let's just be real. I mean, I know this as a comedian, and you know this as a person that I've been on reality TV. You've been on reality TV, and I am a fan of yours, Josh, and I have the utmost respect for you, and I'm not just saying that. How long are you going to do this bit for? I mean, it can only last so long. You can only put on the tuck-friendly bathing suit so long.
Well, it's not a bit for me. It may have been a bit for you. But for me, it's how I feel.
Josh, you're lying. What did your parents say about this? Does your mom or dad know about this? Are you close to them?
I'm close with some family members, yeah.
And I'm sure that they do not like this because they know that Josh is a bodybuilding guy that likes to slam babes. That's why he's on The Bachelorette. And they know this is all a gimmick, and you have 1 million Instagram followers, and now you're going super viral, and I know what that's like. And what people don't understand is when you have the mindset that you and I have, we don't care. I don't care. People can make fun of you. That's not me like kind of confronting you right now. It's not going to hurt your feelings. But your family, they could be embarrassed by this. Do you not feel any sort of, guilt to them? Not for you, because I see you're like me. We don't have a lot of shame. But your loved ones, they know it's a bit. I mean, why are you going to do this to them for so long, Josh?
Yeah, I'm just living my authentic truth. And
come on, Josh, show me too. Quit playing with me. I'm the pimp on a blimp, Josh. I can do this bit. I can do this dance with you. We can joke around, and I'll be nice, and I'll say all the transgender shit. But it's a work. This is a gimmick. This is like professional wrestling. Sorry, I'm not trying to yell at a beautiful lady like you, but.
I'm sorry. That may be one of my favorite exchanges online for quite some time. In fact, I just want to watch that last moment one more time when they go back to Josh and because everything he says is exactly what Dylan Mulvaney or any other of these transgender warped individuals will say, right? It's like, I'm just living my true self. And when Alex just loses it, I'm sorry. I want to watch this last 20 seconds again.
But your loved ones, they know it's a bit. I mean, why are you going to do this to them for so long, Josh?
Yeah, I'm just living my authentic truth. And
come on, Josh, show me too. Quit playing with me. I'm the pimp on a blimp, Josh. I can do this bit. I can do this dance with you. We can joke around, and I'll be nice, and I'll say all the transgender shit. But it's a work. This is a gimmick. This is like professional wrestling. Sorry, I'm not trying to yell at a beautiful lady like you.
All right. Listen, that's all we got on this. I did to be continued because this just happened last. I'm just living my authentic truth. It is. Listen, this is going to go one of two ways. All right. Either this is real, this dude is really doing this, and I guess he's just going to have to. He's going to have to keep it going the rest of his life. I mean, listen, Caitlyn's still up there, right? Or the big reveal is going to come. Somehow this whole thing is going to come to reach some kind of coda, and he's going to sort of, well, I was going to say rip off the wig, but the fact that he doesn't even bother wearing a wig is amazing. He's going to have to reveal it somehow, and however it ends, I mean, we'll be here for it. I'm popping the popcorn, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Whatever this is, it's certainly entertaining, that's for sure. All right, Bill Maher is at it again, this time not on his own show. He's doing the tour, for his books, and we like Bill Maher the best when he goes into left-wing territory. We talked about him when he was on Gutfeld, and he was fine. It was good. But when he was on The View, and he was sort of pushing back on their insidious liberal chatter, he's brilliant because he talks their language and he's one of them. So they have to be nice to him. They have to invite him on. And in some circles in this country, they even think Bill Maher is an intellectual, which brings us to the Aspen Ideas Festival. Yes, the Aspen Ideas Festival, where we go in the summer to beautiful Aspen, and we look at the blue skies and the beautiful vistas, and we talk about how our Marxist ideas are going to take over the planet, make everything sunny and wonderful, because we have ideas, and it's Aspen. So it's the Aspen Ideas Festival. So, of course, they invite Bill Maher there. And Bill Maher, having a bad hair day, as you can see here, Bill Maher starts to talk about the election and how the left is losing right now in this country. And make no mistake, Bill Maher is still a man of the left. He is still a Democrat. He still hates you for your conservative ideas, even though he'll pretend to have a conversation with you. He'll walk out and sort of give himself a Brillo pad shower because he still thinks you're odious for supporting Donald Trump or any Republican for that matter. This is who he is. That's fine. That's fine. As long, listen, at least he's honest about it. But where he's powerful and where we like to see him is when he stuns the intellectual left, the so-called intellectual left, at places like the Aspen Ideas Festival, by actually telling them why they're losing and how ridiculous they are and how wrong they are and what the American people actually think of where they've headed. Because as liberal, left-wing, progressive, whatever word you want to use, Bill Maher is, he's not insane. And he sees the far left right now in this country, which is slowly starting to become the mainstream left, and he sees them for how insane they are. So watch what happens when he told them that.
I mean, part of it, the left has to own. They are aggressively anti-common sense. The Democrats keep running on this one idea, saying to the American people, you can't possibly think you can do worse than Donald Trump. And they keep saying, yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. And I understand that. I do. I would never vote for Donald Trump. And as I said, I think the Republicans are worse. But yeah, when you know, it's funny when I talk to, you know, my friends around my age, 40, and they are always bitching to me about their kids who are like in their 20s, and they're like super uber woke, and they're driving their parents crazy. And everything is like, you don't get it, Mom. That's old thinking. And I'm like, don't get what? Abolish the police? Tear down statues of Lincoln? Maybe give communism another shot? Get rid of the Border Patrol? Get rid of capitalism? White supremacy has never been worse. Gender is always just a social construct. It's okay to have penises in the women's swimming pool in women's prisons.
Okay,
No, it's not that I'm old. It's that your ideas are stupid.
All right, this is a good time to pause. There's a little bit more of this, and we're going to watch it. But there's two very powerful moments that are happening here. The first is the liberal interviewer here. When confronted with the reality of what the political and cultural left in this country stand for, as personified by the Democratic Party and their policies and ideas, she's squirming. It's hard to hear all of that litanied out the way Bill Maher did and actually keep a straight face. Even she has to laugh at the ideas that the left now stands for as mainstream dogma. You don't agree with everything Bill Maher just laid out there, you're not welcome in your local Democratic Party caucus. All right. And so it's very powerful for him to lay it all out there, mocking them as he does it, and have people on the left who consider themselves so smart and so intellectual actually confront it specifically and recognize how outside normalcy they sit right now. Okay. That's number one. But number two, and I really do want to, God, it's so grudging because I don't like him. But I want to give Bill Maher credit here because they're going to talk about Trump in a second, okay? And this whole conversation began, as you saw, where we started the clip, about Trump, where the left is dumbfounded. They don't understand as they, go on their cable news shows and write in their newspapers that they own and control, and their late night comedy shows that they own and control, and their college campuses and, wherever they own and control messaging, pretty much anywhere except, programs like this and talk radio. They go there and they say that Donald Trump is the worst human being on the planet to ever even consider running for president, let alone get elected. And he wasn't really elected. He was just put there by Vladimir Putin. But he is evil. He is awful. And if he's in there again, our Constitution goes in the shredder. Our democracy is over. And we will never have another election because he'll be a dictator. They say all of these things. And many of them probably genuinely believe it. And as you saw at the beginning of this conversation, you hear all of that. And you say, I don't believe you. And you may think that he's the worst man, but guess what? Hillary Clinton is even worse. You may think he's the worst person ever to run for president, but guess what? We think Joe Biden is even worse. And they don't get that. They don't see it. But most of us look at it and say, yeah, okay, he's not perfect, but you know what's worse? What you've got to offer. But then even more importantly and most powerfully is what Bill Maher just did, because he reinforced why we are supporting Donald Trump for president, why you are supporting Donald Trump for president. He just reinforced it. And it's not about cult of personality, and it's not about his hair, and it's not about his television show, and it's not about his rallies, and it's not about the MAGA hat, and it's not about him dancing on stage. That's all fun political stuff. No, Bill Maher just told the left to their face something that they cannot comprehend or ever will acknowledge, and that is we are about ideas. We are about ideas that we believe in, And even more importantly, frankly, in this day and age, we are about being opposed to the Marxist, destructive, burn the country down ideas that they believe in. And this is, after all, the Aspen Ideas Festival. And it's pretty remarkable that their conversation, all they want to talk about is the man and the rhetoric and fascist this and fascist that and racist this and racist that. Those are labels, those are words, those are pejoratives, those are insults. That's demonization, but it's not ideas. And everything that Bill Maher just listed there, those are the ideas that the left stands for. In fact, there were panel discussions on Aspen Ideas Festival before and after this conversation about defunding of police and about allowing people with male genitalia into women's spaces and all of the things that he just laid out there. Because those are their ideas and they're reprehensible and odious to most Americans. And that's really why we believe what we believe and why we support who we support. So I want to hand it to him for actually bringing it back to ideas. All right, now watch where it goes.
And
well, okay, so you're very cantankerous.
when people talk about Trump, that's what they should be talking about. Like, why do people, because a lot of conservatives say to me, what you don't get about Trump is we don't like him either.
They just hate the other stuff more.
And I don't understand. I don't blame them because a lot of it is closer to their own home. Like the things you hate about Trump, democracy, I understand why that's the biggest issue. But a lot of people, it's kind of vague. Ukraine is very far away. But, you know, the stuff about family and race and gender, it's very close to their own home.
Yeah. And yet you could argue that it's the sort of the octogenarians who are really causing most of the problems at the moment. I mean, you know, you're quite sort of tough on the millennials, but you know, they have to deal with all these octogenarians who refuse to leave the stage, who've left them bankrupt, who've taken all their social security. So there is a lot of angst there.
Actually, the older people this time are for Biden.
Yeah,
this is the first time in many, many elections where the older crowd, that's what with my editorial Friday night was talking about this, for the first time, they are lining up behind Biden more than the Republican. You know, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean to the millennials or the Gen Zs, but you know, when I see them with their Queers for Palestine banners,
I know, that's the one that really gets to you.
I'm out. Okay.
Again and again about ideas. And he is right generationally. Isn't it interesting that they only talk about boomers and millennials and Gen Z and they forget us? Well, me. Maybe you're part of this too. Gen X, we're the ones who will save all of this. Give us a chance. Give us a chance. Trust us. We got this. All right. So that's a good example of a man of the left actually trying to step away from his ideological bubble. He's not leaving his bubble. He still believes what he believes, but to actually honestly evaluate what the left stands for right now and the reality of why they're losing, right? So that's one approach you can do when you're a left-wing Hollywood celebrity. The other approach is brought to you by Whoopi Goldberg and her pals over on The View. Because earlier this week, they were having a political conversation, as they often do. And when she said Donald Trump's name, well, watch what she did.
I think it would be remiss of us to not say, Joe Biden knows how to do this. Yes, he knows how to do this. He's quite good at this. And, you know, you can't refute anything with him because he just, when I say him, I mean...
He rambles.
Trump.
Yeah.
He tends to just...
But can I mention one thing?
Now, let's break down what just happened there. As you saw, because she never says it. She always says, you know who. She thinks she's so clever. They hate him so much they refuse to say his name. They're children. They're little petulant children, and they act like toddlers. But let's watch again real fast what happens when she actually is brought to the moment where she actually has to say the name Trump.
Trump.
Yeah.
He tends to just...
But can I mention...
Yeah. She spits. She spits. Now, it's interesting because they do this a lot. If you mention Joy Behar does this a lot. Now, Joy Behar is an 81-year-old Jewish woman, and when she says Trump, she'll do this thing that's... Have you ever seen that? She does that. This is, and I only know this because I'm a big fan of musical theater and I love Fiddler on the Roof. You ever seen Fiddler on the Roof? See, in Fiddler on the Roof, It's this Yiddish thing. It's a Yiddish Eastern European Ashkenazi Jewish thing that's made its way to New York as well, and it actually becomes a thing that even non-Jews do in New York. Okay, I knew a lot of people in New York when I worked and lived there in the theater business and stuff who weren't Jewish, but they would pick up on these Yiddish things like non-Jew. They'll say things like, "Oh, that's a fakakta thing to do," right? Or what? God, I'm gonna. Why do I need to schlep all those things over there? Why are you such a putz? See, these are all little Yiddisms that end up making their way into our vernacular when you work and live in New York. And in Fiddler on the Roof, if you look, whenever they say people's names who have died or people that they don't like, or it's like a curse, this is supposed to like keep evil spirits away. That's why Joy Behar does it. This thing. And I, if you're Jewish or Yiddish, I mean, I'm sorry if I'm mangling this, but this is my understanding of it, that it's supposed to ward off, evil spirits or what have you. And I think that that's what Whoopi Goldberg was sort of pretending to do because she sees Joy Behar do it all the time. But really what it came down to was her in one of the most disrespectful things. Is there anything more disrespectful than spitting on somebody or about somebody? And she did it not in this cute little Fiddler on the Roof Yiddish way. She did it in a disgusting, disrespectful Trump. Because he's not even worth my spit, is what she's saying. But here's, of course, what you really need to understand. She's not spitting on Donald Trump. She's spitting on you. Imagine being part of the ABC television network and the ABC News division of ABC Network, a publicly held company owned by Disney, and you're the host of that show, and you mention the name of a political figure who is currently the leading candidate for president. If the election were held today, Donald Trump wins. According to Real Clear Politics, if you look at the battleground states, all of them, Michigan, Ohio, Nevada, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Arizona and Georgia, all of them go for Trump if the election's held today. He wins with over 310 electoral votes if the election is held today. And imagine hosting a show on ABC owned by Disney and saying that candidate's name and then spitting. Like you're spitting on every single viewer that is part of the majority in this country who want to vote for him. That's what you just saw. And she is an employee in good standing, and she's celebrated, in fact, by ABC, owned by Disney. And she'll show up again tomorrow and continue to do what she does. And we bring this to your attention because when you're a left-wing Hollywood funny guy who hosts a show, you can go the Bill Maher route, or you can go the Whoopi Goldberg route. It's two different choices. I'm not asking either of them to be conservative. They are who they are. They're going to do what they're going to do. But I know who I have more respect for at the end of the day. All right, that's it for this time. We'll be back next time. And in the meantime, my name is Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.